Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. The US drops bombshell accusations against China and Russia in Congress hearing, exploitation, debt traps, and a new Cold War. Watch the fiery exchange as lawmakers demand action to counter foreign rivals vying for control of the world's fastest growing continent.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss great power competition in Africa and other important issues on the continent. As you noted, today marks 23 years since 3,000 innocent people were killed in attacks in the United States. We honor their memory and the memory of over 7,000 service members lost in the war on terror, along with a number of our fellow diplomats and development professionals. And we also remember today our 4 colleagues killed in the terrorist attack that began on this day in 2012 in Benghazi, Libya.
BASE strategically ties America's post-9/11 legacy to its modern African policy, a move meant to frame US engagement as both moral and existential. But critics might ask, is this emotional appeal masking a reactive scramble to counter China and Russia, who've spent decades deepening ties? Note how he positions counterterrorism alongside economic rivalry, a delicate balance of security and soft power.
Africa is at a pivotal moment, home to the world's fastest growing and youngest population. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African. The continent hosts diverse and irreplaceable natural resources and critical minerals. African nations play an influential role as a regional voting group in the UN and in advancing global priorities to the benefit of Africans and Americans. The region, as you've noted, is also of acute interest to our strategic competitors who are coaxing or compelling African countries into trajectories of debt, negative growth, and exploitive security relationships. China has established a one-way trade relationship with Africa, dumping goods at below market prices, while the United States, in contrast, has for years promoted African exports to the United States through the African Growth and Opportunity Act.
Here's the smoking gun moment. BASE paints China and Russia as predators, he paints China as exploitative, but let's not forget the long history of Western nations, including the US, doing much the same. From colonial-era resource extraction to modern-day trade imbalances, Africa has often been treated as a pawn in larger geopolitical games. While China's methods may differ, labeling them uniquely predatory ignores the hypocrisy of criticizing others while pursuing similar goals, just with different branding.
And the PRC is also working to expand its military presence and relationships in Africa. At the same time, Russia has committed widespread human rights abuses while providing security, and I put security in quotes, to unelected governments, sown disinformation about health programs that are benefiting a wide number of Africans, and exploited Africa's natural resources.
Accusing Russia of exploiting Africa rings hollow when you consider America's own track record of supporting authoritarian regimes across the continent during the Cold War and beyond. Yes, Russia spreads disinformation, but the US hasn't shied away from meddling either, whether through covert operations or backing unelected governments. At best, this critique feels like projection. At worst, it's willful blindness to historical precedents set by the very country making the accusations.
In this environment, the United States seeks to demonstrate the value of our partnerships while promoting fairness and transparency. Terrorist activity, as you noted, Mr. Chairman, has grown over the past decade on the continent, with violent events nearly tripling since 2014. And efforts to build capable, professional, and accountable security forces which continue must support and complement investments in good governance, human rights, stabilization, and economic opportunities.
The rise in terrorism is undoubtedly alarming, but how much of it stems from external interventions rather than organic causes? Decades of foreign interference, from proxy wars during the Cold War to drone strikes today, have destabilized regions and fueled resentment. By framing itself as Africa's savior against terrorism, the US conveniently overlooks its role in creating the conditions for extremism to flourish. Who's to say more intervention won't perpetuate the cycle?
The Biden-Harris administration laid out our priorities in the U.S. strategy towards sub-Saharan Africa in August of 2022, a strategy that is grounded in partnership and respect. In December of that year, President Biden hosted the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, bringing together leaders from 49 African countries in the African Union, alongside members of civil society and the private sector. The summit catalyzed U.S. public and private investment and partnership, including the commitment of $55 billion in U.S. government investment and over $15 billion in private sector investment on the continent. We have bolstered our commercial diplomacy in order to create a modern economic partnership on the continent and to reduce African nations' dependency on aid. A signature example is the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investments Development of the Libido Corridor from Angola through the DRC to Zambia.
The Libido Corridor sounds promising on paper, a once-in-a-generation rail project aimed at boosting connectivity and economic growth. But beneath the glossy PR lies skepticism. Is this truly altruistic, or just another way to secure access to Africa's vast mineral wealth? Critics might compare it to China's Belt and Road Initiative, accusing the US of offering smaller-scale alternatives while still prioritizing its own strategic interests. Plus, $500 million pales in comparison to Beijing's multi-billion-dollar investments, hardly proof of serious commitment.
We and our partners have created, we believe, a once-in-a-generation rail project to improve East-West connectivity, integrate Africa with global markets, and under this initiative, expand opportunities in energy, digital, transportation, and agriculture sectors that are going to boost trade and create jobs, both in Africa and here in the United States. We are grateful to have had bipartisan congressional support for several critical historic aspects to our policy. Ranking Member Meeks, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Department for putting forward a bill to institutionalize the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit to ensure it is held on a regular basis. And I would ask that the committee continue to work closely with your Senate colleagues to pass legislation as soon as possible to reauthorize AGOA, PEPFAR, the Development Finance Corporation, and to make some adjustments to how the Millennium Challenge Corporation is able to operate on the continent. I can't emphasize enough how transformative these programs have been to Africa's economic development and to advancing our interests on the continent. These programs have and continue to set us apart from our competitors. I'd also like to request your support for the extension of a critical authority for overseas comparability pay, or OCP, in any continuing resolution or other funding legislation pursued before the end of the fiscal year. Currently, the last day that federal employees in the Foreign Service are authorized to receive OCP is the end of this fiscal year on September 30th. And if it lapses, all of our dedicated professionals working on the continent will take an immediate pay cut, averaging tens of thousands of dollars.
This admission reveals a glaring contradiction. For all its talk of valuing diplomacy and partnerships, the US government seems unwilling to properly fund its own diplomats. If America truly cared about strengthening ties with Africa, wouldn't it ensure its representatives were adequately compensated? Instead, this potential pay cut suggests priorities lie elsewhere, perhaps closer to home, where political battles take precedence over international commitments.
So obviously that will undercut our ability to recruit and maintain staff at all of our embassies on the continent, but equally in all of our missions around the world. As my colleagues and I, and as many of you have traveled across the continent, we have seen a thirst for more U.S. engagement. The American model of development and investment is highly valued. We're appreciated for our efforts to uphold democracy and human rights, as well as our ongoing efforts to lead a number of peace processes addressing crises on the continents. Our partners seek our support on security, and there are several critical steps we believe must be taken to sustain this momentum. And working together, I'm confident we can continue to do so. So thank you once again for your commitment to strengthening the U.S.-Africa partnership, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Let me just say, the ranking member and I, on most days, work very well. DFC is a good example. We reauthorized it, I think, at a good pace. It should be on the National Defense Authorization Bill, and it's being held up in the Senate for, in my view, very petty reasons. And so
Chairman McCall exposes the dysfunction within the U.S. system itself, a stark reminder that America's ability to compete globally is hamstrung by internal divisions. While lawmakers bicker over petty politics, rivals like China move swiftly and decisively. This infighting raises questions about whether the U.S. is capable of sustaining long-term engagement in Africa, or if its efforts will remain piecemeal and inconsistent, leaving African nations to turn elsewhere for reliable partners.
I would ask the ranking member join me in speaking with Mr. Cardin, Senator Cardin, and Senator Risch to get through this logjam, because it's so vitally important to counter China, but also to strengthen our economic ties with Africa. The Libido Corridor is really the only success story I see. It's about $500 million loan.
The mention of the Libido Corridor as a $500 million loan adds a troubling layer to the conversation about Africa's economic struggles. While the U.S. frames this project as a success, it's worth noting that loans, even those marketed as development aid, can contribute to the same cycle of debt dependency that America criticizes China for perpetuating. African nations are already grappling with crippling debt burdens, often incurred through deals with foreign powers promising infrastructure and growth. This raises an uncomfortable question: is the U.S. truly offering a better alternative, or simply replicating the same exploitative patterns under a different name? By framing loans as investment or partnership, global powers, including the U.S., risk exacerbating Africa's financial vulnerability rather than alleviating it. For many Africans, the distinction between one loan and another may feel irrelevant if the end result is still mounting debt and limited autonomy over their own resources and economies.
Can you discuss other projects that are underway in Africa that we should be focused on?
Certainly. I think it's important, Mr. Chairman, to look at the portfolios of both the Development Finance Corporation and MCC in this larger context. 4 of the 10 largest portfolios that DFC has are on the continent. In some cases, they dovetail very well with priority countries under the Global Fragility Act. Yep. Mozambique is the largest portfolio that the DFC has on the continent.
Focusing heavily on Mozambique makes it clear that the U.S. is really interested in getting access to its huge natural gas reserves, which are important for global energy markets. Sure, the U.S. talks about promoting African-led, African-owned growth, and that sounds nice on paper. But let's be real. Many people see this for what it probably is, a way to secure resources, not help the local population. Here's the thing: ever since those gas deposits were discovered in Mozambique, the region has been plagued by violence and chaos. Armed groups have attacked villages, thousands have been displaced, and instability has skyrocketed. And guess what? This isn't the first time something like this has happened when the US or other big powers get involved in Africa. Time and time again, we see the same pattern: valuable resources are found, foreign countries swoop in with promises of investment, and suddenly there's conflict, unrest, and suffering for the local people. It makes you wonder, does American involvement really bring progress, or does it just fuel more instability while the US gets what it wants?
And that's not by accident. That is part of using all of our tools to try to get at the most compelling challenges and take advantage of the opportunities to build out African-led, African-owned growth and development through the private sector. Similarly, most of the largest MCC compacts are on the continent,
Right.
and that certainly is not.
Acting Under Secretary Bass presents America's Africa strategy as a values-driven mission rooted in partnership and respect. Yet, scratch beneath the surface, and familiar patterns emerge: competition for influence, exploitation of resources, and self-serving narratives dressed up as altruism. Whether battling China's infrastructure blitz or countering Russia's disinformation campaigns, the US is playing the same game as everyone else, it just uses different language to justify its moves. In the end, Africa risks becoming yet another battleground for great power rivalry, with ordinary Africans paying the price for decisions made far beyond their borders. Perhaps instead of asking who can offer the best deal, we should question whether any of these external actors truly have Africa's best interests at heart, or if they are simply fighting for their own slice of the pie. Bass talks about America's Africa strategy as if it's all about partnership, respect, and shared values. But when you look closer, the same old patterns show up: competition for power, grabbing resources, and dressing up self-interest as kindness. Take the libido corridor, for example, America's so-called success story. At just $500 million, it pales in comparison to China's massive Belt and Road Initiative, which pours billions into infrastructure across the continent. The truth is, the US is no longer the superpower it used to be, and its best offer to Africa seems to be more military bases on African soil and a pittance paid to host countries, if they paid at all. Meanwhile, whether it's battling China's infrastructure blitz or accusing Russia of spreading lies, like Africans can spot manipulation when they see it, the US is playing the exact same game as everyone else. They're just using fancier words to explain why they're here. In the end, Africa risks becoming nothing more than a battleground for global powers fighting over influence. And who pays the price? Ordinary Africans, whose lives are shaped by decisions made in faraway capitals. Instead of asking which foreign country will give us the best deal, maybe we need to ask a bigger question: do any of these outsiders really care about Africa's future, or are they just here to take what they can get? It's time to stop letting others decide our fate and start demanding a future built by Africans, for Africans. Is the US really here to help Africa, or just itself? As Africans, we know all too well how foreign powers come in with big promises, only to leave us with debt, instability, and broken dreams. It's time to ask the tough questions. Are these so-called investments really about uplifting Africa, or just another way for global powers to exploit our resources? Let's demand transparency from both foreign governments and our own leaders about deals being made in our name. Stand up for African-led solutions that prioritize our people, not foreign interests. Please share this video with your friends, family, and community. It's time to start a movement for real sovereignty and accountability. Together, we can ensure that Africa's future is shaped by Africans, not outsiders.